Hello, BookTube. I'm here to do a tag, the My Favorite Penguin tag. It was weaponized by Steve Donahue from a video by Lukash of Totally Pretentious. And it's to talk about your favorite penguin. I had to think about that for a while because there's so many penguins that I like. But I whittled it down to two, and they sort of have their sort of sentimental memories and odd memories, I suppose, for the one I chose, um, and so that's how I did it. The one I am choosing is my favorite is Herodotus, is histories. The second one, runner up, is Cicero. I do have the Cicero volume. It's not the same one I used to have, but Murder Trials by Cicero. Um, the Herodotus, like I say, I no longer have it. It was a mass market paperback like this that I had originally got in the 80s. And that's part of the sort of memory of it and part of the love of it. It could have been very well the first Penguin that I read in sort of 81, 82, possibly 83. I don't know the exact date. I remember where I'm quite sure where I bought it, and I might have bought it with another penguin at the same time, and I believe I did. And I think I bought that with Livy's history, the War with Hannibal. And I'm not sure which one I read first, but I'd read several times throughout the 80s. Herodotus, I picked up Thucydides after that. The Peloponnesian War, and I enjoyed that as well. But what stuck with me was Herodotus, mainly because it was talking about the areas that I was very interested in: Babylon, Egypt, Persia, the whole sort of Asia Minor area, and Greece, and so forth. That really worked for me, and that's why I read it several times, and I really liked the way it was written. I had to look up to see who the translator was, so I was able to find the copy that I had, or as I say, it was a mass market paperback, but it had a similar set. It had a statue on the front, and it was purporting possibly to be Herodotus, but this is not. Cicero is just a figurine, so it could have been any figure, but of sort of uh, a bearded Greek, I guess it is, with or it could have even been a Roman. I don't know. I don't know what the provenance of the photograph was of the figure, but it was somebody had a blanket or something over the shoulders and leaning forward a little bit, and it sort of looked like Herodotus, what you'd expect him to look like, I suppose. But that's the one I had. And in 1991, I went to Jordan to do my field school, to do archaeology, and I took three books along with me. I took Herodotus, I took City by Clifford Simak, and I took Georgia Boy by Erskine Caldwell. I had a shoulder bag that was yay big, um, and along the body side of it, there were two slots in the back of it, on the inside, and one of them fit perfectly Herodotus. It was just like a nice snug fit. And then beside it, I put the Georgia Boy and City. So they filled the two little pockets up perfectly, and it gave it some stability. It was sort of my go-to bag that I used for everything while I was there and around the Middle East. Uh, I had my trowel. I always kept my trowel. So the basic the things that always was in there was my trowel, uh, books, a water jug, like an army water jug that was clipped onto the shoulder strap of the bag, and then there was another bottle that of water that would go at the end of the bag. It was like a cloth that was sticking out, so you could stick the bottle into it. And yeah, and then at various times, depending on what I was doing, I'd have other things for archaeology. Uh, just a hat, my keffiyeh or anything like that. Just to cover up keep the heat off. So I had various things, and I sometimes had a extra T-shirt in there because I would wear a T-shirt and a shirt because it was very dry heat, and it worked out nicely. Like, these are all memories that are coming back because I'm thinking of the book, so that's why I'm rambling a bit. But yeah, so it was hot, but it was dry heat, so there would be a wind. So you'd wear a T-shirt and a shirt on top, and you just sort of any sweat or moisture would sort of wick off your body in the breeze. So I'd have an extra T-shirt to smell sweeter at times if I was sweating too much. But yeah, or cameras, and I had cameras, and that sort of the T-shirt sort of helped too by sort of wrapping around the camera so they wouldn't bang together. Um, and I went off to Egypt this way too. I had another small little bag with me, very small bag that had another pair of jeans in and a couple shirts and socks and underwear. Very small. Like I did, it was just sort of it could flop on my other shoulder as well. So I was traveling quite light. But I'd always have my bag with my trowel, my books, the water, the cameras, and I always took that with me. And I had Herodotus sitting on the stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza, Cheops. Um, and I also had it with me when I went inside the pyramid. Uh, I didn't read it inside, but I had it on the outside, and I was reading about the Egypt section. What is that? Like this book two or book three? I can't even remember. It's so long since I read it. That was the last time I had actually read it. It's coming up to 30 years, and I just can't believe it. But also a few days later, I had time to read it a lot because I was in Saqqara, the other sort of where there are other pyramids, and I decided to walk to Memphis, the ancient Egyptian capital city. But unbeknownst to me, there was a military installation, so I was stopped. I had cameras. I wound up with two weeks in the Egyptian jail in Cairo. They allowed me to keep the books. They confiscated the cameras for the time being. I eventually got the cameras back, but they took all the film. So I had they took my trowel too because possible weapon. Uh, Bloody thing was sharp. I could shave with it at the time. Um, it was a Marshalltown, really good steel. I still got it here. I would have shown it. I would have held it up. I still have it. It's one thing I'll never get rid of, but it's sort of buried, I think, in behind some books here. But anyway, getting back, so I had 2 weeks on my hands sitting in a Cairo jail. So I read Herodotus cover to cover several times. I read all the books several times in the 2 weeks. So I had lots of time. And this was July, so it was quite hot too. But no, yeah, and that's sort of the memory. Some good, some not so good. And I had to look it up as I say to find the translator, find out who the translator was, which was Aubrey de Selencourt, which at the time that meant nothing to me. Now things like that do mean something, like Michael Grant as translator of this, and I always knew who Michael Grant was because I read many of his Roman history books. But yeah, and yeah, so that is sort of my story for my favorite penguin is Herodotus, and a close second is Murder Trials. The reason for Murder Trials, just as an addendum, was that when I went back to high school in the late '80s for a brief period, in order before I go into university, that I went to a high school that had taught Greek and Roman literature, and you could actually take Latin, but I was only there for a year, a year and a half to be honest, because it was a semester school, and this I took one of the classes. I think it was grade 13. No, it wasn't grade 13. No, I didn't take that. I forget, maybe 12 or whatever. It was class on literature, and they did this, and I fell in love with that one and a few others. And during the '80s, I had every every Penguin classic. This one I discovered in that class. I had other Cicero, but I didn't have the murder trial, so I discovered that one there and fell in love with that one as well. But anyway, that's 10 minutes, so I think that's enough on my favorite Penguin. And I should be back in a day or two. I'd like to do the uh, TBR tag if I can marshal enough books together or thoughts for that. Anyway, take care, BookTube. Bye.